Today, we're going to be making the half moon bracelet using silver silk hollow mesh and a knotting technique that you can do directly onto beading wire. For a list of the materials that I'll be using in this tutorial, you can find in the video description. Welcome to the Silver Silk channel. My name is Nilay Patel. I'm the owner, designer, and educator here at Silver Silk and More. Before we get started with our tutorial, you'll want to make sure that you destroy that subscribe button. And if you're looking for more inspiration on what to do with Silver Silk, you can come follow my Instagram. Let's get started with our tutorial. All right, so I have some tools out here in front of me. This is a pair of flush cutters. I've got a pair of crimpers, both from Zoron, and then I've just got a pair of standard chain nose pliers, just in case I need them here off to the side. So that pretty much covers the basis of our tools. You'll also need, as I mentioned, the materials is in the video description, but we're gonna start off with our full foot of beading wire. I'm actually using Softlex beading wire in champagne color. It matches nice with the palette that I'm using today. And you'll only need a foot, not very much at all. And you're gonna go ahead and string on one of their crimps as well. This is a 2x2mm crimp, again, from Softlex wire. I really love how their crimps are double walled and they don't have a seam. So whenever you do make a crimp, you know you're getting a very strong hold on it. So basically the idea here is just to crimp it in the middle. I'm just going to sort of demonstrate that. But here I've done it already for you guys with the help of some TV magic. So I've crimped the center of my beading wire. The reason I did that is that I need a anchor basically that's going to stay in the middle of my wire. And it's also going to serve the purpose of holding my hollow mesh. So to one side, I strung about 20 or so size 3mm beads. These are gemstones that I've had laying around for a little while, and this was a great project to use them in. I just love this blue color. It's going to work really well with that antique white hollow mesh that I'll talk about here in a second. As you can see, it catches into the middle of my wire right on that crimp, and that's exactly what I want it to do. On the other half, I went ahead and strung my end cap here. This is a 6mm Tierra cast cord end. It's just got a hole at the top there, and it's in an antique copper color. And it's got, again, that hole in it so that it'll catch on the crimp there. And then I've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 size 8mm gemstone beads on the other side. This is going to be the side that I'll be making my knot on. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to unhook this one side and I'm going to go ahead and prep my hollow mesh. Now, many of you may or may not have worked with hollow mesh yet. And if you haven't, it is a wonderful material. This is a hollow knit sleeve, and it is about 5mm in width. And you can actually stretch it to be a little bit bigger just using a skewer or a chopstick or a knitting needle. And then you can also reduce the size and draw it down by using a draw plate. I think the size that I'm using today is going to be just what's off my knitting machine, which is this 5mm cord here. And just because I want those beads to move around a little bit more freely inside and look really cool, I think with the layered effect there. So one tip that you'll need to know is that you cannot just simply string this through because you're going to have a very difficult time doing it. So what I recommend doing is making sure that there is a blunt end on your beading wire, just simply by making a small little loop on one end, just like that. And now you can freely pass it right through without having to get it all caught up in your knit holes there. I'm going to go ahead and pinch down one side just like this and have it wrap ever so slightly around that crimp. Just kind of making a nice little pocket on one side. And then on the other, I'm just gonna uplift that knitted sleeve to make sure that it's nice and comfortable around those beads. I want them to move around pretty freely, so I don't really want to tighten it up too much. So I'm just gonna pinch in the end where I feel it's gonna be a nice um, hold on the beads there. And I'm going to go ahead and trim off just a little bit, making sure that I don't get my beading wire cut there. So you could just do this really carefully with your flush cutters. There we go. I can go and remove my loop there because I won't need that now anymore. Let's just get those out of the way. And then I can go back in and kind of just pinch this down more to get it nice and secure. So one side is pretty much complete. I can go ahead and string on my cord end on one side and then do the same for the other. And I added a little accent bead on my sample piece here, there at the top, just before I crimped it. So I'm gonna go ahead and put one on this side. Perfect. So now I'm ready to go ahead and crimp this one end through. So I'm gonna string on my 2mm crimp. I'm going to string a half of my clasp, or in this case, it's a jump ring. And I'm gonna go back through my crimp. And you can go back through a bead if you want to. I would say that my bead hole might be just a little bit too small to pull this off, which is perfectly fine. Again, knowing and investing in the right crimps to make sure that you're getting a nice secure hold on everything at the end is the key to making sure that your piece won't fall apart later on. So I don't feel too badly when I'm using soft flex crimps to just go through the crimp by itself. And then I'm going to go ahead and just do a standard crimp using my crimpers. So I'm going to put it in the very last notch to get myself a nice little crescent shape, turn it on its side, and then use a notch in the middle there to compress it, excuse me. And then I could just trim my extra wire off. Pretty much the same thing on this side whenever I go to crimp it at that end, but I want to go ahead and make my knots on all of this first. So I'm just going to move my bead stopper down a little bit. And now at this point, I can bring out my 1mm leather cord. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and tie a couple knots here. And I think on my sample, I tied 2 knots. If you tie multiple knots, you'll just get a bigger knot, which is not a bad way to start off the project, or this knotting part at least. So you could do maybe 3 times. Whoops, broke my leather there. That's okay, we'll just continue on. Sometimes the 1mm leather can be very delicate. So one thing I forgot to mention is to have some E6000 industrial glue on hand as well. So you can see that it just kind of builds up, and then I can trim off the rest of that after I get a little dab of glue on. And I'll do that at the end of this video. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is just do a standard overhand knot, excuse me, simply by forming a loop and then going right through the loop with my leather cord there. And then what I'm going to do is actually press the leather cord against my bead and then just work that knot down into the bead stringing material there. So I'm going to move this bead stopper out of the way. You could see that how delicate I can really get that knot to work for me. So I'll just continue doing the same now. It's pretty easy and really efficient, I think, to knot directly onto the beading wire, just because I feel like all of my strength in my design is going to be reliant on the beading wire and not the leather, which can be, again, very fragile, as you experienced earlier. And this goes so quickly, super duper quickly. There we go. So yeah, you just kind of keep continuing on. You can kind of compress it as you go along here. I actually kind of like how this has, if you tied in multiple knots here, you can get some really fun texture going on there and make it look super rustic. Perfect. Super easy. One thing I want to talk about is the measurement of your bracelet. So in my sample piece, I did a bracelet that was about 8 inches in width, or I guess in total length. Um, and so in this one, I ended up subtracting some beads out just so it'll fit a smaller wrist. So that's just something to consider whenever you're stringing this on, is how big you want it to measure first. And so you may want to end up doing the same process I did, which is just to go ahead and string everything together, measure it, and then go to add in your extra techniques and filler materials. Okay, there we go. This is coming along very quickly, which is wonderful. We all love that quick satisfaction piece. And I think if you're really looking to make something in less than an afternoon, this is going to be the project for you. So now that I'm on my last knot, what I'm going to do is go ahead and tie it off a few times, just as I did whenever I tied it in the beginning. So we'll do one, we'll do another. And we'll throw in a third one. Again, better safe than sorry, right? And I also like that they start off with thicker knots and then kind of just have the smaller ones in between. I think from an artistic standpoint, that's kind of nice to have that scale difference. Okay, I'm just gonna trim it off, but I'm not gonna trim it tight right now because again, I wanna go in later on and put a dab of glue or nail polish on there just to secure it even further. I'm gonna go ahead and trim these off though. Meantime. Okay, so now I will go ahead and make my crimp here on the other end. So I'm just gonna string on a crimp. You could see that I already strung my white bead there before my crimp. Again, that just ties in with the whole finishing there. And then I'm going to string it through the second half of my clasp and then go back through just the crimp. Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna need my handy chain nose pliers here to pull that wire down to get it nice and tight. I just want to take a second to measure out my bracelet and lay it down and do all the good things before I end up securing the one side, just so that I know I've got a nice finished piece here. And then I'll go in with my crimpers and then go in the last notch first, get that nice crescent shape, turn out on its side, and then use the middle notch there to compress that crescent. I can go in and trim that wire down. And that is pretty much my bracelet to completion. As you can see, it took no time at all to put together. And it's got this really great textural intricacy on one side and then the nice bold design on the other. And yet it all marries together beautiful in perfect harmony. All right, you guys, thanks so much for joining me. I enjoyed teaching this project to you. If you want to check out some of the other projects that I've done, you can check out the playlists and the other types of chains and the things that you can do with them and for other similar projects. Guys, please leave a comment below if you enjoyed this video or want to give the channel some love. And I will see you on the next Tuesday tutorial, and big hugs to all of you out there.